YouTube, this is Brian916. In this particular video, I wanted to talk about some of the things that I use and other mechanics use that is not a typical tool. In fact, wasn't built to be used as a tool. However, mechanics have found a way to make it a handy tool. First thing I'm going to start with is the trusted paper clip. Now, this paper clip I use for so many different things. Primarily I use it for like a OBD1. If I get an old OBD1 with a check engine light on, a lot of times you'll jump the connector to count the flashes. Some older Toyotas, you have to jump the connector, and Hondas too, jump the connector, a certain connector, before you adjust the distributor to get the ignition timing where the factory wants it. So paper clips are good for that. Also, if I'm diagnosing a compressor that won't cut on, I'll check it for power. If it has power, I'll check it for I'll jump the low pressure switch, and if the compressor kicks on at the low pressure, after jumping a low pressure switch, then I know the system just needs to be charged and then checked for leaks. So paper clip is number one on the list for tools that is not necessarily made as an automotive tool, but mechanics have turned it into a tool. Next on my list is going to be a spark plug. That's right. So mechanics use these things. I know guys who use them as sinkers and actually fish with these, but I'd rather just buy a sinker personally. But anyway, that's a side point. I know guys who use these. Well, I'm not gonna say guys, I do it myself sometimes. If I'm diagnosing the ignition system problem and this thing is not available, or I don't have one of these at the moment, or whatever the case may be, just your simple spark plug, you can hook it to the ignition wire and yeah, go ahead, hook it to the ignition wire or plug it into the ignition coil, a coil on plug style. And then once you get it in there, just ground it out. Use your test light to make sure it's a good ground, and just ground it out, and you can actually look at it spark and see if you get spark. So spark plugs mechanics use as an actual ignition test tool. I do it too. Next is going to be paint markers. A lot of technicians use paint markers to leave ourselves breadcrumbs to be able to find our way back home when doing big teardowns, or just note the direction or orientation of something. I know if I'm doing an engine swap, I always take the flywheel off the new motor, throw it away, and put the old flywheel from the old motor onto the new one, because I know that old flywheel worked just fine with the torque converter and transmission, and so there's no risk of it having a different amount of teeth, or one of the weights flew off, or maybe it's not weighted the same, or what have you. So I usually do that, and I'll mark the flywheel, and it'll usually have some spacer ring around it, sometimes as many as 2 spacer rings, and I'll always hit those with the pin so that I can get them back on at the correct orientation. Also, I use these for vehicles that have a tremendous amount of vacuum lines. I'll just put a dot on a vacuum line and a dot on the spout, 2 dots, 2 dots, or maybe I'll write 1 1 2 2, what have you, so I can get that engine put back together and the vacuum routed back correctly. All right, now that brings me to another tool that mechanics use that is not a tool, and yes, a piece of paper towel. You're thinking, now what the heck how could a mechanic use a paper towel as a tool? Well, this was shown to me by a gentleman that I used to work with. And basically, you take some paper towel and you stuff it in the socket, and you stuff your bolt in there so that it won't come out. So if I need to get this bolt started somewhere where my hand won't reach, I could just, and it won't come out, and I can get that bolt started. So, and you can see it stays in there really well. So this is a nice little trick that a mechanic taught me. Some guys I work with laughed when they see me doing that, so I bought these so they could shut up. But honestly, I still use the paper towel because it works better than the paper. The paper towel still works better than this magnet. These magnets get weak over time. So that's one little handy thing that mechanics use. Another thing we use is zip ties quite a bit. A lot of guys will use them when doing timing belts to keep the belt fastened to the cam sprocket so that it can't move, which that's really clever. Some belts I end up doing that over using a clip on particular certain timing belts. It's a lot better to use that than say this clip. So that's another thing mechanics use. Now I got a couple things. Well, actually, let me show you one last thing, and I'll show you some of my bizarre stuff that I created. But RTV and assembly lube. I don't know how many times I've used a dab silicone just to sort of stick something in place for a moment while I get in there and get a bolt started or what have you. Same thing with assembly lube. Whenever I'm doing an engine rebuild, I'll put a dab of assembly lube to make the thrust washer stay in place while I lower the crankshaft into the back of the engine block. So little stuff like that makes life easier and makes the job possible as a technician. And then here's some of the things that I've done to sort of get a job done. This was smoking out or evap in a gas tank that was really hard to find, and we knew it was leaking from the back, but for some reason we just couldn't get enough smoke to sort of pinpoint. It just looked like it was coming from everywhere. So I made this thing and smoked it directly into the tank, and then we was able to get a ton of smoke coming out of the particular broken part. I believe it was like maybe a purge, some type of like purge valve or a purge canister or something like that. And so yeah, I made this little thing up, and so this worked. And then this is my universal for the other thing I just showed, and this is just a tennis ball with a hole cut in it. And yeah, you guessed it, just push that thing up against the fuel spout or the chute where you put your gas pump in when you pumping gas. Just force that up there, and it'll seal it up. Just hold it up to it like that, and then force air in there and have somebody under there checking it out while you're holding it, and it'll seal up right around there too. It works great. So that, and then last but not least, this is what I use when, let's say I'm going to the junkyard, I need to get an electric fan, and I'm not leaving that junkyard unless I know that I have a fan that works. So there's no batteries at the junkyard, so what do? Well, this is what I do. I usually bring my one of my batteries from my impact guns, whether it be my DeWalt or my Craftsman, what have you. And so I use this to jump the fan while I'm at the junkyard or whatever electrical component. I'll jump it. And what you want to do is you want to find the polarities on them and mark them like I do. And so basically just, I put my test lead on there, and you can see we got 19 volts on it. Now if this polarity was wrong, I would have a minus symbol in front of the one on that 19.9. So it would show up with a negative here if the polarities were incorrect. So that's what you want to do. And I use this and bring it with me to the junkyard. I need to get an electric fan. Of course, this tool was not built for that purpose, but I put a little test lead on it, jump the fan cuts on. Great, I got a good one. I bring it home with me, or boo, I got a bad one, and I go searching for another one. So this is another tool that I use to help me get the job done, or to make life easier, or just sort of to help me get it done. So once again, this is Brian916. Thank you for watching my videos. Appreciate it. One honorable mention before I get out of here is the bent or crooked wrench that most people will manufacture to be able to get something at some odd angle. So that's just one honorable mention. I know a lot of techs do this. As you can see, I've done it myself. So anyway, had to throw that honorable mention out. And once again, this is Brian916. Thank you for watching my videos. It's greatly appreciated. Please hit the subscribe button, and I'll try to keep more videos coming that's interesting. Thank you.